Believe it or not, when most Muslims think about preparing for Ramadan, the first thing that comes to mind is
samosas! Hi, and welcome to episode 28 of Happily Entangled AF. So today we are going to talk about preparing for Ramadan. And we generally start preparing from the month before, which is called Shabaan. And that's also a month where people start fasting, so that they start practicing before the month of Ramadan comes around. And so we are going to break it up into 3 different levels of preparation. And the first one will be how we prepare at the Masjid level. The second one is going to be how we prepare as a family. And then the third one is how we prepare as individuals. So let's start with preparation at the Masjid level. So in the years gone by, postmortems would have been done after Ramadan, and the Jamaat, or the members of the head committee, they would decide how they're going to change things or tweak things for the next Ramadan. However, with COVID, things have had to change. So they have been having meetings and they've been brainstorming, and a lot of the Masjids are now going to do curbside pickup. So you would pick up your iftar plate and your dinner, take it home, have your dinner, and then you return later for the late night prayer. And we will see how this goes. We don't know what will happen, but that's the plan so far with most Masjids.
Yeah.
And I guess things will have to change. That's just what it is, and we have to accept that.
And so far from the feedback that we've had, because we've touched base with a couple of masjids, is that every masjid has a different plan in place. Some masjids are, I don't want to say that they're having iftars per se, but they are allowing the cooking, etc., to happen in the masjid. And some masjids are doing delivery, some are doing pickup, like Asma mentioned, and some are doing like the very small jamaats that are family oriented, like just 10, 12, 15 people or whatever, are doing their spaced out iftars, depending on the size of the masjid. So a lot of factors will go into each masjid deciding what they should do based on how they are best able to abide by the COVID-19 regulations. That will be the biggest factor this year, so every masjid will be different. That being said, however, the second area really concerns the cleanup of the masjid. And the cleanup of the masjid is something that, even if it is paid for or outsourced to a company or people during the course of the year, leading up to Ramadan, there is great pleasure in the congregation, the members, the Jamaat, going to the masjid to clean the masjid in preparation for the month of Ramadan. Ramadan is the busiest month of the year for any masjid and most Jamaats, and as such, there is it's like an honor to be able to go and clean the masjid in preparation for this holy and blessed month, So many Jamaats have already done this. Our masjid did it last Sunday. We weren't able to attend, unfortunately, because we had a pre-existing engagement. But our friend Ryan went and represented for us and power washed and did everything, and I hope he called our name.
So we get some blessings.
Just want to say thanks, Ryan, for repping for us as well. The third area in terms of how the masjid prepares for Ramadan concerns that of the Tarawih.
Yeah, so the Tarawih prayer is really special, and at that time the Jamaat would look for someone who recites the Quran really well, because just that proper pronunciation is really important, and I think it adds that level of spirituality and that connection, and really just does tug at your heart, and you want to make sure that your salah or your prayer is performed really well, and you are following someone who is reciting nicely. Like, we remember years ago, a lot of people would rush to Charlieville Masjid to listen to Sheikh Said Adam. His recitation, you describe it as being poor reason.
Yeah, poor reason.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that the Jamaat will also try to find someone, a hafiz, someone who knows the Quran well, and they will also have great pronunciation.
Yeah. So just to translate some of those things, the Tarawih prayer that we're talking about, we just sort of took it for granted that you would know, but the Tarawih prayer is that late night extra prayer that Muslims offer during the month of Ramadan, which is the reason why so many Muslims flock to the masjid during the month and spend so much late hours in worship at the masjid. And when she mentioned the word hafiz, a hafiz is just that person who has memorized the Quran. And a hafiz, there may be many what's the plural of hafiz? Hufaz? the plural of Hafiz, I think, is Hufaz. So there may be many Hufaz at a masjid, and they may not be selected to lead the salah because there may be someone who has not just memorized but is also a couple notches above them in terms of like their tajweed, their pronunciation, enunciation, and even understanding of the Quran, etc. So it's usually the best qualified person that would lead the salah, and the person who is really able to offer, just to deliver the best recitation altogether. And that, for me at least, is the most important decision any Jamaat will ever make when it comes to or pertains to the month of Ramadan. And finally, the fourth area in which Masjids prepare for Ramadan concerns the provisions that they make for some of the payments that have to be made during the month of Ramadan. Now, there is a financial aspect to Ramadan in that there are certain taxes that ought to be paid. So there is the fidya, which is basically the fee that you have to pay if you are unable to fast for one reason or the other. You can compensate by making this payment. There is the sadaqatul fitr, which is like a fee that you pay to just sort of compensate for any shortcomings in your fast or your worship during the course of the month. And then there is the zakat, which is not something that happens during Ramadan. This is actually an annual tax on your wealth past a certain point. But many Muslims choose to make this payment during the month of Ramadan, as the month of Ramadan comes with, that many more extra blessings, rewards, etc. Inshallah. So the masjids would tend to provide this service whereby they would go and seek out the people who are either deserving of or who qualify for the payments, and they provide that service. So you just pay them the money and they make the payments on your behalf. You can, however, still go and make these payments directly without going to the masjid, but it is a great service that many masjids offer, and it allows the masjid to really be able to coordinate the payments to ensure that everyone in their community is well taken care of, as opposed to 10 of us making individual arrangements and we all go to the same person. This way the masjid can ensure that it is well spread throughout the community of those who are most deserving. And this is basically how we prepare for Ramadan at a masjid level. Let's now talk about Ramadan preparations from the family's perspective.
So at a family level, we start by most times cleaning out your house. And cleaning out your house is like every nook and cranny, and then your cupboards as well. So I remember as a child, we would go through our clothes and we will set aside the clothes that we're going to wear to go to mosque for iftars. But this year, no iftars happening. But if you're going to go for Tarawih, we're going to have separate clothes that you're going to do it. And then sometimes we would even go shopping for our e-clothes before, so that you could spend your entire month, reading extra Quran, and you're not wasting time per se looking for e-clothes, during the month of Ramadan.
Yeah, I think the real goal of preparation like this before Ramadan is to ensure that you're able to utilize the time. It's all about time management, right? And you want to spend as much time as possible engaged in worship and other acts of ibadah or worship during the month, outside of the fast, of course. And so you try to do as much as you can before the month begins so that you don't have these distractions. So cleaning and the clothes is one, but like for instance groceries, we've already made our groceries as of the end of last week, just in anticipation of Ramadan, because we don't want to spend valuable Ramadan time wasting that in the grocery or in the supermarket, doing all of these things.
But this is something that not everybody could do, right? Because you're working with your budget as well. So if your budget doesn't afford it and you have to go during the course of the month to get what you need, then you have to do what you have to do. But if you could avoid it, well, that's what for us. We want to avoid having to go then. And that's why we decided to do ours.
I should have really said means permitting. If you have the means to be able to do it in advance, it allows you that much more time during Ramadan to maximize that time efficiently and effectively, and not just getting your supplies, but also doing the regular things like paying bills, running errands, that sort of stuff. If you can do these things before the month begins, most Muslims tend to go down this road, so that you have more time for take care of what is necessary and then spend all of your other time engaged in acts of ibadah or preparing for acts of ibadah as well.
So on another point, right? So we actually try to visit as many people as we need to visit before, because during that month you don't want to do so much visiting either, because you don't know how your timing is going to go, So actually, we are at my sister's house right now recording this vlog. So we visited with them, we got into, we got to play with baby a little bit before she fell asleep, and we took advantage of that time.
And truth be told, her sister has only just realized that we're killing two birds with one stone by recording the vlog here and using this as quality time with them as well. And by the way, when we say visit, I just need to clear the air and let you know that this means visit our immediate family. So we're not, happy-go-lucky going around visiting people and stuff like that. It is a pandemic period as well, so you also do have to ensure that you are responsible. All right. So that's another way that we're prepping for Ramadan. And one other way that most families would prep for the month is transportation arrangements. And I have to single that out because during the month of Ramadan, many people make different arrangements with work and otherwise. So you might go into work earlier and might be leaving work earlier, and if you have to pick up someone, a spouse, or maybe the kids after school. Now I know COVID has changed everybody's schedule, but transportation is a major arrangement that is usually made in advance of the month of Ramadan. Even if it's just you alone and you have to make different arrangements because you're leaving to go to work earlier and coming back home earlier. All of these things have to be done, and this is a major thing as well. And lastly, at a family level that we could think of is meal prep.
Yes. Because you don't want to waste time during that month cooking all day, so you kind of want to figure out exactly what you're going to be cooking. So it's going to be much faster. And then we already fasting during the day, so we want to kind of keep our bodies healthy. Despite the fact that we love samosas to break fast, we just can't seem to get enough of it.
Yeah, the samosas are a guilty indulgence. It's just a thing that I think Muslims just kind of got stuck with, that it was just a really nice treat to break the fast with.
And that came in recent years. Because before you would just get like dates and water.
And dates, grapes, maybe some ginger and water.
Yeah.
Yeah, that usually used to be it. And not even dates, a date, one on your plate, But anyways, we digress. The real thing is with meal prep is we're trying to move away collectively as Muslims from the period in time when many women, folk in particular, would have spent all day during Ramadan prepping for dinner, because the big deal was the dinner that you'd have after you break the fast, and that is not the purpose of Ramadan. So that being said, there are so many things that we put in place for meal prep. So like she and I have been doing a combination of two things. One, we've been trying to prep our meals, like plan out our meals, so we can purchase our fresh vegetables and fruits accordingly, and so that we have a plan and we're not just eating what is available. That ensures that we're eating healthily. But on the other side of it, because you're not going to cook every single night, on the other side of it, we have also put in place things with our caterer. And I say our caterer because Muslims will tell you, as we told you at the start of it, that when it comes to the month of Ramadan, I'm sure everybody has a caterer or somebody who's their favorite on standby. For us, as of last year, because it was really the first time last year that we would have met up with her, there's a sister by the name of Shaliza Hassan Ali, whom we met at a South Market, and she does catering. So she's a Muslim sister, she and her husband, and they do catering. Her business is called Cupcaking Around Cake Shop. Cupcaking Around Cake Shop, but it's more than just cupcakes, right? And what I really like about Cupcaking Around Cake Shop, and which is why we're actually giving you this recommendation to give her a try, or asking you to give her a try, is we love the fact that, in our household we have different dietary requirements for both of us as well as for my mother, and we're able to get healthy options. So if you're up for your samosas and your fried treats and your pastries, you can more than get that from Shaliza, and it'll be delicious. But on top of that, if you want the healthier options to things, she's able to give you that as well.
And the presentation is excellent. She's got an A+ for presentation. It's
the absolute best presentation of a food box that I have ever seen locally came from this sister. Everything is packaged individually. There is no cross-contamination. And what I love is we actually tried her for the first time. We were catering for an event where there was going to be like a variety of people, some very young, some very old, and all of whom had different requirements, have to be diabetic friendly, pressure friendly, and all sorts of things, right? And we placed the order, and we got the boxes all packaged perfectly and each box labeled. So things were packaged differently for children, it was packaged differently for those who were diabetic, and everything was on point. So, this sister is coming, highly recommended from both Asma and I, that you check her out, that you check out her business, you give her a call, and use her as your caterer if you are in need of iftar boxes this year, or even dinner as well. I'm sure she'll be able to put things in place for you, especially if you're looking to sponsor an iftar, sponsor a family, and you don't have the time to prep for it. This will be really good. So I think we will put the contact information for cupcaking around Cake Shop in our description below and on the screen as well, so that you can give her a call and tell her that Fuzma sent you, or Fuzma asked you to call, and hopefully you think she'll give them a discount when they hear her name. Maybe. You might get a discount, but you'll definitely, and Shaliza, I'm counting on you to make me credible here. You'll definitely, if you order samosa, get what they call a baker's dozen. So if you order 12, you'll get 13. Right? So that, in essence, is how we prepare for Ramadan on a family level, by making all of these arrangements. And finally, now in wrapping up, it's time to tell you how we prep for the month on an individual level.
So on an individual level, whatever fast I would have missed last year, Ramadan, I'm supposed to, make it up. Like during my period when I was not able to fast, I'm supposed to make it up. However, I did not do that last year. So right now, I'm in the process of completing my fast, and hopefully I will be done before Ramadan starts, inshallah.
And that is one of the many ways that we start preparing for Ramadan of the coming year, in the days ahead or the days preceding Ramadan. Another way on a less spiritual plane is something that we touched on earlier when it comes to work arrangements, because Ramadan is a very different month. Our schedule, it changes very differently and drastically, and so many Muslims would usually approach their companies or whoever they work for altered working arrangements, whether that means going into work earlier and leaving earlier, or maybe getting some time off, by sacrificing their lunch hour so they could leave.
You don't eat a lunch anyway.
Yeah. So you sacrifice your lunch hour, you work through your lunch hour, and so you're asked to leave, maybe a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour earlier, or whatever other alternative arrangements you could make with your company. And many companies we've found have been very understanding of this as well. So by now, I'm sure many would have already spoken to their employers, etc. But this year with COVID and all, if you're already working from home, then that's a whole new dimension altogether that we may not have taken into account in previous years.
Yeah,
so,
but remember, some people are still working. Some people still have to go out to work.
Yeah.
And it's a thing. I think we just like to come home to break fast with your family, or before at the Masjid.
Yeah, and that's really one of the reasons why you make those arrangements.
Because not like you can't break fast on the road or on your drive home, or even at work, because a lot of people have to leave to work and shift, you would end up doing it like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's just a thing that you just want to come home and break fast with your family.
And Asma spoke about making up a missed fast, but I also just want to reiterate a point that we made earlier, that the month before Ramadan, that month of Shabaan, is really the preparation ground for Ramadan. So Muslims, you would be engaged in a whole lot of fasting during that month.
Yeah, because it's said that the Prophet, peace be upon him, that was the month in which he kept most of his fast.
Yeah, he fasted
outside
the
of
most
the other months.
outside of Ramadan, yes, in this month of Shabaan. And this is really preparation. It prepares you not just physically, because some people say, you could fast almost all of the month of Shabaan and it still doesn't prepare you for the fast of Ramadan. Every person will be different, right? So the physical preparation is debatable and different with each individual, but it certainly does prepare you spiritually. You're in a different frame of mind and more ready for Ramadan, and more in you have practice, so you're able to approach Ramadan differently and give it your all, per se. So Shabaan is that preparation month. And finally, I think the other point is we prepare for Ramadan as individuals by recalibrating our schedule. Our schedules are turned topsy-turvy during the month of Ramadan. You're waking up earlier in most instances.
Going to bed later.
So sometimes you need that little siesta during the course of the day. You're more likely to make use of your morning time. So those who would have awakened in the morning to pray the early morning prayer, the Fajr prayer, and gone back to bed. Sometimes you're not going to bed back again. You're using that time to read Quran or to do zikr or remembrance of your Lord. and so many other things. So the schedule changes, plus you're not going to the gym, you're not doing all of the other social engagements, etc.
Although some people do go to the gym in the night after the Tarawih.
Yeah. But most gyms I know will be closed by that time now. So after the Tarawih is done. So you know, all of these things, you know, if you're a gym buff and you still want to maintain your physical anything during the course of the month, you'll have to find that time to fit that in. So maybe you're waking up earlier to be able to do that, or going to bed later, you know. So every single individual will have a totally different routine during the month of Ramadan than they would at any other point in time during the course of the year. And yeah, basically that's how we prepare for Ramadan, or at least some of the ways that we could think of offhand that we prepare for Ramadan in advance of the coming month. Anything we left out there?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, for you in particular, as an individual, you're going to have to make sure you have your fruits and you're not having any roti or any of that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, but that ties back into our dietary point, because we try to avoid all of the unhealthy foods and stuff. But you know, that's we already tackled that subject in this vlog and in another previous one. So that really brings us to the end of today's edition of the vlog of Happily Entangled AF. This is episode 28, right? If there is anything that we have omitted or any other way that you prepare for the month that we did not touch on, please feel free to leave us that feedback in the comments below, and share anything else you would like on the month of Ramadan. If you are not Muslim and you know, we shared some insights that you had never known before, or you now have some questions arising out of these tidbits of information that we've shared, you know the drill. Just drop us your comments. It could be anything. There's no such thing as a silly question. Even if it's something that you think has already been explained but you need more information, trust you me when I tell you that we will be all too delighted, especially on these subject matters, to be able to answer your questions.
And if we don't know the answers, you know, we're going to research it. We will ask
the
people
discuss.
who are qualified, and then we'll get back to you.
Yeah, and speaking of people who are qualified, I do want to let you know that when the month begins, we will continue our conversations on Ramadan related topics as they pertain to couples, and we do have some very, very, very interesting topics to share with you. As a matter of fact, next week, God willing, we will be tackling the topic of what Ramadan means to Muslim couples, because it is a very unique experience of Ramadan when you are married as opposed to when you were single. Things change, and this is one of those instances where being married actually comes with many, 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 many perks. Like, I've not heard Muslims who have been married and maybe are no longer, or who have been married or who are married, ever talk down on their experience of Ramadan as a married person, as opposed to when they were single. But we'll save that conversation for next week. So until then,
thanks for viewing, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye. Fuzma, let's go. Right.